The last race weekend of the season has ended, and we've seen some banging races this year. And whilst the big prizes were already decided, there were still points and bragging rights to be given out at the Yas Marina circuit. So the drivers gave their all one last time, and this resulted in some great battles on track. But one battle went too far. At least that's what the FIA said. And this battle was between Sergio Perez and Lando Norris, resulting in a penalty for Perez in the end. But Perez feels his collision with Lando Norris in Abu Dhabi was 50-50 in terms of liability and was shocked to earn a 5-second penalty. Perez even went as far as saying that the stewards have been nothing more than a joke this season. Stick around to find out what has been said and why Perez was summoned to see the stewards after his outrage. The Red Bull driver finished second on the road on Sunday, but the time penalty sent him to 4th place when it was enforced after the checkered flag. Perez had been having a good run from 9th on the grid as he fought his way up to the podium positions before he collided with Norris at the Turn 6 hairpin. This resulted in the Red Bull driver being punished 5 seconds for instigating a collision, with Norris using the escape lane and continuing up the track before the Mexican was able to go by with a cleaner move on the next lap. Norris blamed Perez for the incident, calling the action careless. Although after apologising to the stewards for his protestations during the race, Perez maintained that there was a racing incident between the two. "Yeah, to be totally honest," Perez said in Abu Dhabi when asked if he disagreed with his penalty. "We ended up contacting, which was unfortunate, but to make contact you require both parties. I think Lando also had some responsibility in that, because he turned into me, as if there was no one there. We ended up making contact tyre to tyre as I was fully alongside him. He cut the corner, he gained time, and I still had the penalty. I honestly don't agree with the decision, but as a driver, there's nothing you can do. I mean, I'm just happy with the performance we put in today. In my opinion, it was a 50-50ths, but he didn't end up losing anything, if anything he gained. Yeah, hard to understand why I got the penalty, if I'm totally honest." Lando Norris, on the other hand, was not thrilled with Sergio Perez's driving, labelling him careless when they collided in Abu Dhabi. In Norris's judgment, Perez earned the penalty for hitting him, even if he tried to make the throw simple. "I mean, I tried to let the guy go and he crashed into me," Norris said. "I don't know what he was doing, a bit careless to be honest." Perez himself was far from happy with the decision, even blasting the officials over his team radio after the checkered flag. In a radio message he said, "The stewards are a joke, man. I cannot believe it. They have been very bad this year, but this is a joke. That was really a joke." This resulted in a summons for a violation of International Sporting Code Article 12.2.1k, which addresses misbehaviour towards authorities, including stewards. The stewards stated to the Mexican that they had no issue with someone disagreeing with their decisions, but that personal insults were a violation of the ISC. The stewards did state that they were conflicted in the matter because they were the ones who were subjected to Perez's comments, but because Abu Dhabi was the season finale, the typical protocol of transferring the incident to the stewards at the following race could not be followed. Perez issued a genuine apology to each of the stewards, noting that he made the remarks in the heat of the moment and did not consider that they would be broadcast. This sport brings out the best in all of us and also the passion. Tonight I spoke with that passion and adrenaline after losing a podium. It's hard always having a radio live, not most sports have that, but I owed the stewards more respect. We all have a job to do and I respect the job they have to do in high pressure situations. On to 2024. While Perez disagreed with the judgment, he indicated he could understand the stewards' finding. Perez, Red Bull team manager, Jonathan Wheatley, and the stewards conducted constructive discussions concerning the usage of team radio signals and their verdict. But many fans and critics have said that Sergio Perez went too far in the heat of the moment when he said the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix stewards were not at Formula 1 level, but his annoyance was justified. This was all because of the 5-second penalty for colliding with Lando Norris in the last stint. He was irritated and perplexed by the decision, especially because Norris cut the turn as a consequence and stayed ahead, forcing Perez to pass him a lap later in a separate effort. This scenario appeared to call for a no harm, no foul approach to be taken. It was another case of the repercussions not being considered when calculating a sentence for an infraction, and simply the conduct itself, in this case Perez striking Norris, being evaluated. While there are some valid reasons for this, it is not always the wisest course of action. Each event is handled at the discretion of the stewards, therefore using common sense on a case-by-case basis seems reasonable, as penalties are not always necessary. Thus, after the race, Perez wanted to let his team know he was not satisfied with the stewards, but being on a live feed, this was of course picked up by the FIA. So, he was summoned for breaching the International Sporting Code, most likely because of this radio message. "We deserved the podium on track, but these stewards are not at Formula 1 level." The stewards of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix took issue with what they regarded to be personal insults from Sergio Perez, but a genuine apology reduced the sentence to a warning. Perez apparently called the officials a joke over the radio, which obviously did not sit well with the stewards. However, because this was the last race of F1 in 2023, the stewards had to make a decision right away, with Perez apologizing sufficiently to escape with merely a formal warning. The stewards quickly released a statement and further documents letting Perez go off with a warning this time. The stewards explained to the driver that they had no issue with someone disagreeing with their decisions, however comments that amount to personal insults are a breach of the International Sporting Code, the court's ruling said. The stewards note that they are obviously conflicted in this matter as they were the subject of the radio statements, and that normally this would be referred to the next panel of stewards. However, as this is the final event of the season, the matter needed to be dealt with here. The driver made a genuine and sincere apology to each of the stewards and explained that he made the comments in the heat of the moment and did not consider the fact that they would be broadcast and the impact of that. He expressed his regret that his comments caused offense to anyone or harm to the sport, which he said he was concerned to avoid. The stewards accept his statements and accept his apology. The stewards also note that the driver is not known for making such comments and has always been extremely respectful in stewards' hearings. He was also reminded that the stewards are always available to explain their decisions when requested by a driver or team representative. The driver, team manager, and the stewards had a constructive discussion about the use and broadcast of team radio messages. The incident itself was also reviewed in detail with the driver, and although he still disagreed with the decision, he stated he could understand the steward's perspective of the incident. When discussing Perez's radio shenanigans with the media, Horner compared it to when a football player goes on a rampage. The difference is that they do not have a microphone attached to them to pick up on it, which is not the case for a Formula 1 driver. "I think he was just voicing his frustration," said Horner. "I think the problem is, if you're a football player, you have a rant, you haven't got a microphone on your shirt. Whereas you can understand his frustration that he's lost a podium, he's driven a great race, so he's had a vent. But unfortunately, that vent has been broadcast." What are your thoughts on the matter? Is Christian Horner making a valid point here? Should the stewards be more lenient towards drivers who are venting their frustrations through the radio? After all, Perez does have a point. He's always on air while speaking during a race. This leaves little room for any kind of frustration or negative feedback during any type of training or race where the drivers are in the car. So, it does seem to weigh heavy when one of the drivers does vent. What are your thoughts on the matter? Do you think the FIA and the stewards are right to go after Perez and other drivers like they did? Or should they have more of a thick skin in these kind of situations, as the drivers won't be able to send out a message without the FIA hearing it? Let us know in the comments down below. As for now, Perez can take a significant positive from Abu Dhabi, as he finished second in the Drivers' Championship, giving Red Bull their first ever 1-2 finish. So now he can take a break, as his seat seems to finally be safe for next year. And maybe he'll be able to provide more of a challenge to Verstappen next year.